Throughout the long and turbulent timeline of humanity, there have been countless tales of endurance, faith, and resilience. Yet, few stories rise to the level of greatness that defines the true essence of survival, not just of the body, but of the human spirit itself. This is not merely a story of escaping death, but of conquering it. It is a testament to courage born from hopelessness, strength carved from pain, and the will to live when every force of nature and man seemed to say you cannot. In this tale, we witness not only the survival of a person, but the triumph of humanity's unbreakable core. Courage. The word itself carries weight far beyond mere bravery. It is the heartbeat of every survival story, the invisible force that drives a human being to stand when the world insists on collapse. Courage against the impossible is not born from strength. It is born from necessity, from the silent realization that surrender means disappearance and resistance means life. When faced with the impossible, courage transforms ordinary people into legends. It is not found in the absence of fear, but in its presence. Real courage trembles, it feels fear deeply, yet still takes that next uncertain step into the unknown. It is the decision to move forward even when the mind screams that there is no hope left. In moments of despair, courage becomes the bridge between death and destiny. History is carved with countless examples where courage stood taller than all odds. From explorers stranded in uncharted lands to warriors surrounded by overwhelming enemies, the pattern remains the same. The body weakens, the spirit questions, but courage answers. It whispers to the heart that even in the darkest night, dawn is possible. This courage cannot be taught. It awakens within when everything else is stripped away. Food, shelter, safety, even the illusion of control. Courage against the impossible is not loud. It does not always roar in defiance. Sometimes it is the quiet determination to take one more step, to crawl when standing is no longer possible. It is the small, stubborn act of surviving another minute. Greatness is rarely born from grand gestures. It is born from persistence, from the will to try again after failure, to hope after heartbreak, and to rise after being broken. True courage challenges not just the environment, but the self. The greatest battle is often fought within, against doubt, fear, and despair. Every survivor reaches a point where they must choose between surrender and struggle. Courage is that inner voice that refuses to accept defeat, that says, I am still here, even when the body shakes and the soul feels hollow. Courage also inspires. It radiates silently, lighting the hearts of others who witness it. One act of bravery can spark 1,000 hearts to resist, to believe that the impossible can, in fact, be conquered. This is why courage is eternal, because it is contagious. It spreads across generations, reminding humanity that our spirit was not made to bow before adversity. In the face of destruction, courage becomes the only weapon. When there are no tools, no allies, no chances, courage stands alone, unshaken. It teaches that survival is not guaranteed by circumstance, but by choice. The choice to face the storm, to endure the cold, to believe in tomorrow even when today feels unbearable. In the end, courage against the impossible is what defines humanity itself. It is the reason civilizations rise after ruin, why hope blooms after tragedy, and why life continues despite the odds. Courage is not a moment, it is the essence of survival. It is the fire that burns quietly in the heart, defying the impossible with every endurance. It is the quiet, relentless force that turns suffering into survival. If courage is the spark that begins the fight, endurance is the fire that keeps it burning. It is the ability to continue when strength fades, to keep moving when the body and mind scream for rest. History's greatest survivors were not always the strongest, nor the fastest. They were those who refused to stop, those who transformed pain into purpose. Pain is the first true test of the human spirit. It strips away all illusions and exposes what lies beneath. In that raw state, endurance is born. It begins with a single decision, the decision to hold on. When faced with hunger, freezing winds, or the endless stretch of loneliness, endurance whispers, not yet, one more hour, one more step, and in that whisper lies the power to overcome. Endurance is not a sudden act of heroism, it is a slow, grinding persistence. It lives in repetition, the steady rhythm of breathing through pain, of fighting the same battle again and again without surrender. Every day endured becomes a victory. Every minute survived a testament to inner strength. The pages of human history are filled with those who endured against all odds, prisoners of war, lost explorers, disaster survivors, and entire civilizations rebuilt from ashes. Their endurance was not only physical, it was mental, emotional, and deeply spiritual. To endure beyond pain means to master the mind. The body may ache, the skin may tear, the muscles may tremble, but it is the mind that decides when to stop. Pain can either be a prison or a teacher. Those who endure see pain not as an enemy but as a messenger, a sign that they are still alive, still fighting, still becoming stronger. They learn to make peace with it, to coexist with suffering without being broken by it. Endurance also reshapes identity. The person who begins a struggle is never the same as the one who emerges. Pain changes people, but endurance transforms them. It teaches patience, humility, and gratitude. It reveals that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it is the quiet act of holding on when no one is watching. Through endurance, weakness becomes wisdom and struggle becomes a story worth telling. Yet endurance is not only about survival, it is about meaning. To endure beyond pain is to believe that there is something greater waiting beyond the suffering, redemption, peace, or purpose. That belief fuels the human will more than food or shelter ever could. It gives direction to the weary heart and reason to the broken spirit. In the end, endurance is the soul's final answer to pain. It says, "You may wound me, but you will not end me." It is the force that has carried humanity through wars, disasters, and endless trials. Pain may bend us, but endurance prevents it from breaking us. It is the proof that the human spirit is not made of flesh and bone. It is made of something far stronger, the will to continue no matter how much it hurts. Faith, it is the unseen strength that sustains humanity when reason collapses and the future disappears into darkness. In every great survival story, there comes a point where logic fails, where the odds stand as giants and no path forward can be seen. It is in that very moment that faith becomes the final torch, small, flickering, yet powerful enough to guide the lost through the night of despair. Faith in the unknown is not blind belief. It is the courage to trust what cannot yet be proven. It is the silent conviction that beyond the suffering, beyond the endless storm, something or someone watches, listens, and waits. It is the whisper of the heart that says, keep going even if you don't know why. When everything visible falls apart, faith builds an invisible bridge toward tomorrow. Throughout history, faith has carried humanity through impossible trials. Sailors lost at sea prayed to unseen stars. Captives in darkness whispered words of hope to a God they could not see. Civilizations under ruin rebuilt their world with belief alone. These people had nothing, no maps, no tools, no guarantees, yet they walked forward because faith gave them something greater than certainty, purpose. Faith in the unknown is not about denying fear. It coexists with fear, gently silencing it. Where fear says, "You will fall," faith answers, "Then I will rise." It does not erase pain, but it gives pain meaning. It does not remove the storm, but it helps you believe there is land beyond the horizon. Faith is not always grand or loud. Sometimes it is as simple as breathing when every breath hurts, as humble as taking one more step when you no longer see the path ahead. Faith transforms isolation into connection. When all is lost, faith reminds us that we are never truly alone. Whether one believes in destiny and divine will or in the resilience of the human heart, faith binds the soul to something eternal. It keeps hope alive when the mind cannot. It turns every small act of endurance into an act of worship, every tear into a seed of strength. To have faith in the unknown is to accept mystery as a companion. It is to live without knowing, yet still trust that life has meaning. The greatest survivors in history all shared this silent strength. They walked into uncertainty with hearts steady and eyes lifted. They did not demand answers. They trusted that survival itself was part of a larger design. And when faith is rewarded, when dawn finally breaks after the endless night, the survivor does not merely celebrate escape. They understand transformation. For faith does more than save the body. It reshapes the soul. It teaches that even when the world disappears, the light within can still shine. Faith in the unknown is humanity's most beautiful defiance. It is the declaration that no darkness, no suffering, no uncertainty can extinguish belief. As long as faith lives even in silence, the spirit cannot be defeated, and the journey, no matter how lost, will always find its way home. The will to live. It is the most powerful and mysterious force known to humanity. It cannot be seen, weighed, or measured, yet it moves mountains, breaks barriers, and defies the logic of nature itself. When all strength is faded, when the body is given up, and the world turns against survival, it is the human will that whispers, not you. That whisper, though small, has changed the course of history more than armies, empires, or inventions ever could. The human will begins as a spark, a stubborn refusal to surrender. It emerges from deep within, often in the moments when everything seems lost. It is not born of comfort or safety. It is born of desperation, pain, and the primal instinct to live. This will does not shout. It endures. It does not command the world to change. It simply decides to keep going, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. Throughout the vast expanse of history, humanity's greatest triumphs were not built by the privileged or the powerful, but by those who refused to yield. Explorers stranded in frozen wastelands, prisoners who survived years of captivity, and ordinary people who faced unthinkable loss, all carried the same invisible weapon: the unbreakable will to live. They were not stronger than others, but their spirits refused to die even when everything else did. The power of human will lies in its quiet defiance. When hunger bites, when wounds ache, when hope fades, willpower becomes the last line of defense. It turns pain into energy, fear into focus, and despair into drive. The body follows where the will leads. Many have survived conditions that no science could explain, simply because their will refused to give permission to die. That is the miracle of human will. It bends reality to match belief. The will also creates meaning. When survival becomes unbearable, the will attaches itself to purpose, a promise to return home, a dream unfulfilled, a loved one waiting. That purpose becomes the anchor that holds the mind steady through chaos. The moment a survivor says, "I must," instead of "I can't," the impossible begins to shift. History proves again and again that the will of one soul can alter the destiny of millions. But the power of will is not limited to moments of crisis. It is the foundation of every human achievement, from invention to art, from revolution to discovery. The same force that keeps a person alive in the wilderness is the same that drives humanity to explore the stars. It is the eternal spark that says, "I will find a way even when there is none." In the end, the will to live is not just about survival. It is about evolution. It pushes humanity to rise higher after every fall, to rebuild after every ruin. The body may be fragile, but the will is infinite. It is proof that we are more than flesh and bone. We are determination made alive. And as long as even one spark of that will remains, no force on earth can truly destroy the human spirit. When the storm is past, when the ashes of struggle settle, and when silence returns after endless cries, what remains is the triumph of the human spirit. It is the final and most beautiful chapter of every survival story, where pain turns to power and despair transforms into meaning. The human spirit, though unseen, is the strongest force in existence. It bends but never breaks, falls but always rises. Its triumph is not just in surviving, but in transcending. The triumph of the human spirit begins where endurance and will have done their part. It is the moment when a survivor looks back at the ruins of what was once impossible and realizes, "I am still here." That realization alone is victory. Because survival is not only the continuation of life, it is the rebirth of purpose. The human spirit, tested through pain, emerges wiser, purer, and stronger than before. Throughout history, humanity has endured catastrophes that could have erased it, wars that scorched continents, plagues that silenced cities, and disasters that swallowed entire civilizations. Yet from every tragedy, humanity has risen again. Each rise has carried within it a quiet miracle, the triumph of spirit over suffering. Every generation that rebuilt, every nation that healed, every individual who refused to surrender, they all became proof that the human spirit cannot be defeated. What makes the human spirit extraordinary is not its perfection, but its persistence. It learns from every scar, every loss, every heartbreak. It refuses to let pain be meaningless. The spirit turns wounds into wisdom, tears into lessons, and brokenness into strength. It understands that defeat is not the end but the beginning of transformation. Where the body fails, the spirit continues, invisible, unshakable, eternal. The triumph of the human spirit is not measured in grand monuments or victory parades. It happens in silence, in the eyes of someone who survived hunger, in the hands of one who rebuilds after ruin, in the heart that forgives after unimaginable loss. These moments, though small, are what define humanity. They remind us that strength is not about domination but about resilience, the ability to rise again and again no matter how many times we fall. The Spirit's greatest triumph is compassion. After surviving the impossible, the human heart learns empathy. It begins to understand the pain of others, to heal, to give, to rebuild not only for oneself but for all. That is the ultimate victory, not just surviving life but enriching it. In the end, the triumph of the human spirit is the essence of hope. It is the story of humanity itself, a story that never truly ends, because as long as there is breath, there is the will to rise. Every dawn after darkness, every song after silence, every smile after sorrow is proof that the human spirit will always prevail. No storm, no suffering, no shadow can extinguish it. The human spirit, scarred but undefeated, remains the greatest triumph in all of human history.